Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to work on the gourd a little bit. I'm going to get some highlights into the nodules that we've already placed in here, and I'm going to reinforce some of the shadows. So as you can see on the picture, you've got some highlights and then some shadows, and the shadows are a little bit longer than what I have now. So we're going to use straight golden ochre for the shadows, but I'm going to use my eradicator. And this is a number 4 eradicator. And all I did was get it damp. And we're going to go in and take some of that color out so that we get a highlight. Wipe it off. And I'm going to use a piece of paper towel to dab at it as well, because that'll get up some of the loosened paint. And you want to wipe your brush in between. Make sure it's moist, because if you don't wipe your brush in between, unfortunately what happens is you're just reapplying the paint you just took off, and you don't want to do that if you can help it. And we're just going to do this a little bit, and then we'll see where we're at with it. You don't want to take off too much or too many places either. So all I'm doing is getting it wet and wiping the brush in between, and then hitting it with the paper towel. And I can see how already it's starting to get some of these lighter. Some of these out on the edge need to be a little bit lighter as well. And then when we go back in and do the shadow, you'll see a major difference here. Okay. You don't want to do a lot right there, because that's right at the turn of the shadow on the entire gourd, so you don't want to do a lot on the left-hand side. But I do like it when it has the highlight over here. I think I've used my brush way too many times. Need to get a new one. There we go. Okay, so we got the highlights back in pretty much the way I want them. Clean that brush out really well. And now I'm just going to pick up some of the golden ochre, or the gold ochre, and that'll be our shading. And it's some of these in here need to have some shade. And I'm just going to put quite a few down, and then we'll go back in and soften the edge. Now whether they're the ones that you've highlighted or not, they're still going to need a shade. And then we need to do another glaze on this after, when we get this detail done. We want to make sure this is nice and dry. Soften that edge away. But you don't want to lose all of it. But you don't want a hard line either. getting a hard line there, so I'm just going to soften that away. There we go. Okay, a little bit more that we need to do. I'm going to turn my design so I can get at them a little bit easier. Yeah, they're starting to pop out more, and that was the goal here, is to make them stand out just a little bit more. And by doing that, creating the value change, the highlights and the shadows, is what makes them stand out more. Softening that edge. Okay, so we're going to let those dry, and while that's drying, we're going to do a little bit more work on the leaves. We're going to start on this leaf because we need to define that flip a little bit more, and we'll have to put in some shading and remove some of the highlights that I want to put in there. I'm going to use just a Sennler green and the Hooker's green, and then a touch of the indigo blue to make it darker. So just a very small amount, very small leaf here. And I'm just going to outline it first so you can see what I'm doing here. We kind of lost what was happening on this leaf. And I'm just going to soften that inside edge away. Give it a place to go. So what's happening is this leaf is just twirling up basically like that. Paper is really dry right at the moment. There, that's better. And now that I've got that wet, I'm just going to add some water to the same, just to get some more color in here. It really kind of lost its color. This needs it back here too. It's not moist right now, but that's okay. But this is lighter because I added the water. It's making more green. Should have made more than what I thought. Okay, now I'm going to just add some of that in. And then if I need to, we can soften it away. Now I did get some on the apple, so I'm going to just sweep that out. As long as it's still that wet, that's pretty much all you need to do if you happen to go over like that. Just make sure your brush is drier than the paper, and it's just like picking up a puddle. Okay. So that makes a little bit more sense in my mind's eye as I look at that leaf. I'm going to darken it right in there again. I'm going to separate this one from that one and from here. And it's starting to run into the apple again, so I'm going to do that. Take that off. There we go. Okay, and we're going to let that set up for a minute. We're going to darken this one and work on it one more time. Work on this outer edge first. Grab my magnifying glass because I'm having a hard time seeing. There we go, that's better. Wrong leaf, this one. I'm going to take some of that same watered down color. And I did put a glaze on there. I'm going to stay away from that corner because I want that highlight to be there. Okay, so that's got its second glaze on. But now let's just do that darker section on the inside. I'm going to darken this just a little bit more. Now this is wet on dry, so I did not glaze it. I didn't want to anyway, simply because I don't want it to run into that portion that's still damp next to it. And clean the brush and soften that edge. And I'm just going to run it up. To soften it. I do want it a tad darker up there too. I want it to appear to be separate, separating that front one from the back one. Okay, that looks better to me. This one looks better to me. Let's do some work on this one. It needs another glaze. I'm going to move this just a little bit so you can see it better. So let's put now I'm just putting a water glaze on here. I don't want it to be so wet that it stays wet forever with the blending and glazing medium. So I'm just adding a water glaze. And I'm just doing the lighter part of this leaf, rather than this section or this section here. And I'm trying to avoid the highlighted areas as far as getting it wet. Okay. This is pretty watery, but it's going to add some color and value. So in other words, when we're doing that type of a glaze, you don't want to fill in the complete leaf. You want some of that first value you'd lay down to be there. So don't cover the entire area. Hopefully that makes sense. You want those extra values to show. This area seems to be drying hard, so we're just going to go in and soften that away. There we go. This as well, just to be safe. Alright, now let's look at the dark areas, because I'm going to darken those up as well. And we still have accents and so forth to go into this. Now I'm doing this wet on dry. And again, I don't want to cover the entire area of that dark. I want that other dark to show through as well. The more values you can get, the more realistic your paintings will be and look. Softening that in. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that looks better to me too. I hope it does to you as well. So I'm going to dry this real quickly, and then we're going to put another glaze on this. And before we get rid of these greens, let's do another value up here on this stem. Now this is almost like a little bit of a separated stem here. What I mean by that, it's darker on the left-hand side and has almost a distinct line going right down the middle. But I think for the lighter portion, we're going to get some yellow in there because that's what it needs. It looks pretty stark white right now. So we're just going to get a little bit of yellow in here, tie it all together with the rest of the painting so it doesn't look like it's all by itself. Yeah, I like that better too. Okay, that looks good. Now let me dry all of this and then we'll come back and we'll do that glaze on the gourd. Okay, I got everything nice and dry. And we're going to mix our color first for the glaze for the gourd. I'm going to use my blending and glazing medium water. I don't want to do like we had darkened it with the orange. I don't want to do that again. This will help bring that up too a little bit. So I'm using the two yellows, which is the lemon yellow and the Sennelier Yellow Light. And we're going to add some of the golden ochre to it. Just a touch to give it some depth. We don't want it all to look like the same. Every item is the same color. We don't want that. Alright, that could be enough. We're going to make just a bit more. That's a big surface. And don't forget, this is going to dry lighter after we put the water on. And it dries, it'll dry lighter. So that glaze of water makes it dry lighter. Okay, I'm going to just gently, because you just did some work on those shadows, so you want to be real gentle as you apply your water glaze. And you want to get it right to the outside edge. Making sure you can see me, and it appears as if you can, so that's a good thing. Okay, go right around that corner. Now if there's a shading that you put on you don't care for, you can certainly take it off right now with this water on here. So there we go. So I got everything nice and glazed, and I am going to pick up my number 8 so I can get a lot of paint in here. I'm going to start where I want it to be the darkest, which is over in the corners. Add just a little bit darker down here, but just the golden ochre, because I want that to soften in a little bit better, and that'll make that happen. So now I'm going to clean my brush because I don't want straight golden ochre in there, and I do need some more paint. I can't believe it. So I'm going to do that right away too. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to start up here. Just kind of sweeping that color on gently. There we go. Yeah, this is going to make quite a bit of difference on this. And that's what it needed. And those highlights that we took out, it'll be softer too this way. And again, I'm just going to grab my magnifying glass so I can make sure I get everything covered the way I want to, around the edges and so forth. Make sure all of your outside edges look good. If not, once everything's dry, you can use your eradicator and straighten them all out. Okay. Now, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to do some more work on the leaves. First thing I want to do on this leaf is give it a stem, because it both of these look kind of like they're just hanging there. They don't look like they have a stem at all. So I'm going to take a little bit of that green. I'm going to add some of the golden ochre to it. Give it a little bit of a brown cast so it's not the same color as the leaves. Alright, that's better. And the first thing I'm going to do is that leaf, or stem. So I can keep my hand out of that. I want to make this look a little bit separated. That's better. It's darkening it. That's a good thing. We're going to leave the tip the same color. Grab my magnifying glass. Having an issue with visual today. Okay, I did go outside. Of the area I wanted to go to, so I'm going to grab my eradicator while it's still wet here. It'll be the easiest. Clean that up. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now I think I got my hand in that. I think I did. So we're going to go back in and very gently add in some more color down here. Yep, there it goes. That's better. Couldn't wait too much longer to do that because it would have dried. And then you'd have had a problem getting it in. would have just messed it all up. You'd have been better off waiting for it to dry. Okay, I'm going to pick up that same color we created with the Sennler green, the Hooker's green, and the golden ochre. I'm going to create a stem for both of these. I'm going to connect them together first and then create a stem. Holding my magnifying glass and not using it. There we go. Dropping things inside my water bucket. That's not good. There we go. Soften that in a little bit. There we go, that's better. I like that better because it's not just hanging in midair now. Okay. I just dropped another one in the water. What in the world here? You don't want your brushes to sit in the water because some of the handles are wooden and it'll blow it and then you've got a problem. Now, let's work on this one a little bit more. It's nice and dry, other than the stem. And what I want to create is a shadow between the veins. And I do want to create this outline here. This is actually the outside edge of that leaf. This is the inside edge. There we go. See how that's just kind of made that more realistic with the highlight here, and it's curling down and creating an inside edge there. So the first thing I want to do is get some water, and we'll start down here. I'm just going to get some shading in there. And this one can use some right up to here. So we're going to do a darker green. It's the Hookers and the Sennler green mixed together. And then just a touch of the indigo blue. There we go. And we're going to start up here. Okay. Come on, color. And again, you don't want to cover up all the values you have in there. Pick up more paint as you need. But this just sets those veins off. It sets them in so you can see . Now I got enough color on there. softening that in. With a clean, damp brush. Alright, it's starting to look better. Get this moist. And we're going to treat that back edge just as if it is a separating of a vein. There we go. Just making sure those are going to soften away. I'm going to take my eradicator. Make sure we maintain that highlight for that flip. Okay. I'm going to dry, well, we can do some more in here too before I have to dry it. And I'm going to do this wet on dry. And again, you don't want to cover up the entire area and lose all your values. Okay, I'm going to dry these. We can put some veins on those too. So I'll be right back with you. We're back. Now I'm going to take my small eradicator brush, which is the number 4, and I'm going to create some highlights on those stems. My whole brush got wet by falling in the water bucket, so I'm going to wipe it off. Since we've got these right here. Wipe off the paint you just picked up. I'm using the brush in the same position I would to put in a line straight up and down. Sometimes that works better. I'm also going to grab a piece of paper towel. That'll help pick up some of that paint that we just removed. And we're going to go right down the line here. This just gives the illusion of highlights on those veins. Now I'm not scrubbing when I do this, I'm just gently moving it as if I were adding the vein, basically. It's what's going on. And it just gently picks up that paint. Okay, does look better. Now, I'm not happy with the thickness of this stem here. This is the one I kind of messed up, so I'm just going to work on it till I get it the way I want it to look. It's a little bit too thick there. And this is how you would if you're doing a, say a daylily that's got a lot of line work on it, on the petals. Your lines get a little thick. Let it dry and use your eradicator and get them to the thickness that you want. Okay. Let's do some line work on these guys over here. Now I'm just using my number 2, I think. Oh, this one's actually a number 4, but that works. Paper's buckled right there from the, and I'll show you how to straighten that out at the end of the design so you can see how we can fix that. Okay, I'm going to move this so I can get at this side a little bit better. There we go. First thing I want to do is just kind of define that edge of that corner of the leaf. There we go. You always want to curve your veins because otherwise they're not going to look, they're going to look way too stiff and then they don't look realistic. Never seen a straight line of a vein anywhere on any leaf, so it's always important to curve them. Just separating those two leaves out a little bit better there. Okay. Turn that a little bit like this. So we're going to have the veins come up this way. Here, because it's, let's see. Yeah, they would come up this way. Got to think about how your veins are growing, and you want to make sure that you get the veins in there the right way. So we're going to let those dry. And we're going to have one real faint vein in here. And like this. And these are just real faint. You don't need them real dark. And again, you want them nice and soft and curvy. So there, we're going to dry those. And before I get done with this right now, we're going to turn this around. I'm going to do it off camera. So you don't have to see me twist it. I want to do these veins here on this leaf and get some more value in those. They look a little stark. redirect that vein a little bit. It looks a little funny. There we go. You don't want to go real dark over this highlight, but you definitely want some value in there. And then once they're dry, we'll go ahead and take the highlight to them and the eradicator to them and get the highlight done. And it's darker down here, so we can... And then we'll do the mid vein on this guy too, so we can get those... And we'll do the highlights on these veins too. So let me go ahead and dry this. And we'll be right back to get the rest of those veins done. Here we go. See you in a minute. Okay, everything's nice and dry. I've changed to a new eradicator that's hopefully a little bit stiffer, and I'm going to let that set up a little bit more, but we're going to take the highlights on these veins in here off so that they're more noticeable. This one might not be small enough. And these are real tiny veins in here. You can barely see them anyway. Soften that in just a little bit there. This is a nylon eradicator. Just inexpensive, I think, at Walmart. To do this, you don't need a good brush, because you don't want to ruin a good brush anyway. I would prefer a bright. This one is not. Bright is where the bristles are shorter, easier to control. Hoping that you can see me doing this. Now this is not the center of interest. This area in here is the center of interest. So we don't want this to be real bold or anything anyway, but we want them to look like veins for sure. It seems to be working. That's a good thing. This is the darker area, so I'm not going to go crazy with the paper towel or anything.
Yeah, there are certain, you know, this would be alpha type of thing.
There we go. Now we need to do the same thing over here on these top bands. And again, these are away from the center of interest. And they all need to get some orange trim and gold trim on them as well to tie them all together. So good. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to glaze the squash one more time. It needs to be, in my opinion, a little bit more orange than what it is. So I am going to mix the color first. We've got this gold that we had done the gourd with. I'm going to make some more of that, which is just a Sentinel Yellow Light and lemon yellow, and then a touch of the golden ochre. And now we're going to add in, let's look at this Crimson Lake. No, I'm sorry, Alizarin Crimson. Alright, this will be more orange. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Since this is such a large area, I'm just going to make sure we got enough of the color here. Hopefully that'll be good. We're going to start on the top of the squash. So if we look at the picture one more time, this is the darkest area. And then we'll do the bottom section one more time as well. I'm going to turn this one more time this way so I can get at it. I need to wet it first. And you want to go further out than where you really want the paint to be. But you don't want any hard lines. Getting this edge a little bit wetter just simply because it's going to be drier by the time I get to it. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my number 6 and pick up this color. Make sure it goes to a point. That's always important, even when you're doing a glaze. Kind of going around some of those green areas. And again, I'm not going to cover the entire part that's watered because I want this to soften in. Times it seems like certain projects you end up doing 5 and 6 glazes on the same area, and yeah, fortunately that's the case with watercolor. It gets to be it's transparent, so you've got to realize that it's going to dry lighter There we go. So we're going to let that part dry, and then we'll start on the bottom glaze. We're going to do that half and half because it's a big area. Seems like I got enough paint here. I think I will mix some more just to be safe. Alizarin Crimson. Touch of the golden ochre. Sandalwood yellow light. And lemon yellow. Really makes a pretty orange. There we go. Alright, let's get some water on here first. Make sure I got enough water on here further than I need. There we go. Pick up the paint and go to a point. Yeah, it's a much prettier orange. Here we go. And again, I'm not covering the entire red area because I want some of the other values to show through. Give it form. Okay, I'm going to add some more water on this side. There we go. And I think I actually made enough paint this time, so that's a good thing. I'm liking the apple, so I think we're going to just leave the apple. It doesn't need any more glazes or anything. Some of these areas are nice and dark, so you want to be sure and get those covered. And then some of them are just dotted away.
Like any other teenager, you know?
Okay. We're getting there. Okay, I'm going to dry all of this. Yeah, that really set that aside from the other values of the... But before we lose these colors, because I really like these colors that we're using, making sure I get all of that covered down here. And we still have shadows to put in. But I want to get some of this color on the leaves. I'm going to go for this tip first. I'll get that color in there. I do want to have a little bit of that color right in here. And then right over here. And I'm just going to, and that was wet on dry.